All right, guys, welcome back to another great class. Here we are doing what's called brand plus network equals power. So, when it comes to branding as a wholesaler, you don't need a logo, you don't need a slogan. You need people to know your name, see your deals, and answer your calls because in this game, if nobody knows you, you don't exist. So, what is a brand really? So your brand isn't your color scheme, it's your reputation. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. So say this clearly. Can you be trusted? Do you actually close? Are you worth doing business with? And that's your brand. And in real estate, your reputation builds your reach. So want a brand that closes deals? Answer your phone, do what you say, make sure they work with you again. An example of this is just this week, I was talking to a new buyer, and he was talking about indirectly talking about a deal that I had done with another buyer in the city, and the reputation is spinning in the background. And he didn't actually hear it from that buyer. He heard it from a real estate agent who was talking about me. So they talked to a real estate agent about the situation and about me, and he heard it from another real estate agent. So like four people later, the thing came back. And this is where your reputation builds your reach, good or bad. You know, if your reputation is bad, it's out there, it's reaching out there. So you can imagine if you're the guy who does what he says, answers his phone, and brings good deals to the network, that reputation will go out to the network. If you're the guy who doesn't answer his phone, he doesn't honor his contracts, and doesn't bring good deals, that reputation will also go out to the network. So what are some best branding advice if you're just starting out? Using your name, get known in your city, and be the person who's always got something cooking. You know, when you're trying to build your brand, especially early on, and I was saying this to my acquisitions assistant earlier today, I said, look, what do you notice about what I'm doing? I'm literally sitting over by the charger on the phone, calling people, people calling me, other people connecting. I made 5 or 6 phone calls connecting things. And I said, what is it that you're noticing about what I'm doing? And he says, well, it's all really about networking and who you know. And when you're starting out, you have to show up to events, these networking events. This is the number one way to get in and find different buyers. You know, one of the buyers I was working with today who wants to buy one of the deals that I'm working on, I met him at a networking event, and now we're connected that closely, and he's able to, connect with me on deals. The other thing you want to do when you're getting started is you want to be seen walking deals, making calls, and doing those walkthroughs. You know, when it comes to starting in real estate for your brand and your reputation, your presence is your credibility. People need to see you doing things. If people keep seeing you in deals, even if they're not working with you yet, they'll start believing you're legit, and that's that brand. So really, when you're looking at it, brand and reputation in this section can almost be interchanged. If people know you as the guy, both ways. You know, if people know you as the guy who does crappy deals, you're known. And if people know you as the guy who does good deals, you're going to be known that way as well. So when you're looking at the power of having the right network, you know, you don't need to know everyone. You need to be known by the right people. So where do you start? You want to start with 20 solid buyers, and you want to know what they want and what they don't. When you get a deal, think, who is it for? And reach out to them immediately. Make them feel like they're on that short list and work your short list. You know, build that reputation. You only really need 20 solid buyers to really get this going. And maybe one or two or three of those buyers end up buying everything all year. If no one comes to mind when you get a deal, your network isn't real yet. So if you can't think of a name when a deal pops out, if you can't think of a name when a deal pops up, you don't have a network, you have contacts. Because if you don't know what they want, how can you actively match them to the deals? A lot of people solicit names for buyers lists and join my list, but you have to do buyer surveys to find out what they're actually looking for. Because if what you're finding is if for no one in particular, then how can you possibly try to disposition that deal and get it into somebody's hands when you have no idea who is actually for? Blasting it out to emails is great. Sending text messages is better. How many unread emails do you have? Thousands, possibly. How many unread text messages? Probably not thousands. So get closer. We don't want to be using emails so much. We want to be getting those phone numbers. So, how to build a real network. First thing you want to do is call everybody, talk to everyone at those meetups, watch who comments on your deal posts, save their number, add the notes, and follow up. So that's going to be realtors, lawyers, contractors, lenders. Your inner circle, treat it like gold. So you don't need a fancy CRM, you need a phone and a memory to know who closes, know what they want, and then follow up with them. You know, we just did a wholesale meeting at 6:30 tonight, a couple hours ago, and it was the same people. You know, I get out of the car and there's one of the top wholesalers in the city. And I looked at him and we were joking. I'm like, well, if you're here, I can leave because this thing's pretty much sold. You always have the buyers. And I remember back in the day when I was training him, and one of the biggest things I said was like, look, if you really want to take your wholesale business, because he was finding deals, but he was having problems getting rid of them. And I said, if you really want to take your business to the next level, stop doing pay per lead on just leads. You need to do pay per lead on the buyer side of your business because that's where you're going to be able to connect the two pieces. It's not enough to just have great deals. Yes, that'll be helpful. But when you have a great buyers list, you can move even things you don't think are great deals because the list is so big and so powerful. So, what you want to do is build your brand while you build your network. The biggest cheat code here is social media. You can build your brand and your network at the same time. Post your hustle, show your walkthroughs, share your offers, let people see you're in the game, and always be funneling those eyeballs into your buyers list. Something like want your next deal first, drop your number and I'll text you before I post it. That consistent content moves to the conversion. They're one and the same. One of the walkthrough videos that I did something like 11 or 12,000 plays the other day. And normally, you know, you post something for a reel on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and you might get, you know, 200 or 300 views or whatever, and it's done. But the walkthrough videos, you know, end up being 12,000 people are seeing this thing. And all it needs to say on there is like DM if you're looking for deals like that, and boom, that thing starts working for you. Those videos continue to be in your ecosystem and they keep working for you while you're asleep. So don't post to look cool, post to build trust, post to pull numbers, and post to get calls. All of these things together is we want to utilize the social media. I remember when Gary Vee was talking, he was saying, you know, it used to take tens of thousands of dollars to get onto the television and to be seen on TV because that was the way to do it, or get a TV commercial, or even to be in the newspaper or on the radio. It used to cost a lot of money. But now we can have just as big, if not greater reach with no money, but you have to put in the effort. You have to shoot the videos. No one's going to do the content. And I suggest if you know, if you're in this business, you go and you get an iPhone, something that has good video on it, because the quality of the video that you're posting, the algorithm will determine whether or not it's going to push that just based on the quality of the footage alone. You could have a great video, poor quality, the algorithm's going to push it down. So the plan this week, you know, this week's game plan, we want to make 5 new buyer connections. We want to DM 3 realtors with, let me know if you got something off market. You know, reaching out to those realtors, starting that network relationship. as well as posting 3 pieces of what we call in the field content. So that's stories or reels. And from those in the field content, you're going to be able to add those additional 10 people to your buyers list. The other thing too is I've actually been reaching out to other investors, people who are doing deals, and saying, hey, get on my buyers list because I'm seeing their social media content. Are you looking for another deal? Hey, do you like this thing? Hey, do you like that thing? So reaching out to get people to join the buyers list is huge. Just in the field yesterday, we got a new buyer because he was working on a project while we were doing our flyer route. And so I went over there, I met him, we talked, I got his phone number, I sent him deals. He's in my phone now. I got a new buyer. Today, outside another wholesale meeting, talking with one of the other wholesalers, and then boom, another buyer who just got outbid on this property. Yeah, probably wants another property. So just being in the network, I almost didn't go to this wholesale meeting today because I was like, I don't know, the numbers, whatever. But then I remembered that even when I don't have a buyer for a particular property, I want to know what's going on. So I go to wholesale meetings, one to network with the other wholesalers because, what's the next thing we got? Get in closer with the other wholesalers to, really stitch that network together, but also connect with other buyers to figure out, what's going on. What are you actually looking for? I got something else. We got something else coming up here. What do you want? What do you want? So people don't do business with you because you're the best. They do business with you because you're A, available, B, consistent, and C, visible. If you just show up enough and don't suck, people will come to you and do business with you. That's brand, that's network, and that's how you build a wholesaling business that lasts. Because in the business of real estate, the only thing that your company has of value are the lists that we create. And so there's a saying that Stefan used to say all the time, and it's in the book Money People Deal. It says, live as a brand or die as a commodity. There's a lot of unbranded people out there in the business, and you can make a living being an unbranded guy. But there's only benefits that come from being a branded guy. You look at one guy who's in business with no brand and the other guy who's in business and has a brand. He's busier. He might not be better. He's just busier because he's more visible. He's available. He's also, showing his work. He's transparent enough that these other guys can't touch. And in the game of social media, that's what people are scrolling on at 8 o'clock at night. And someone sees something and shares it to someone. And, you could post a video and it goes viral, or you're getting like 1 million or 2 million profile views or videos or reach in the last 20 or 30 days. And it's just goes to show that there's only advantage to being in the public eye. Only one time in 10 years did someone go on my social media and say, I don't want to sell to this guy because he's, a wholesaler or whatever. So for every like negative thing, there's 100 positive things. Now, I'm going to leave you guys with this here. The reputation is very important, especially as a wholesaler. When you're in the business, it can be the end of your business if you do bad deals. The number of people, much like when it's a restaurant, the number of people who compliment you is much lower than the number of people who will complain about you. So they're definitely not going to complain to you about you. They're going to complain to everybody else and start pissing in the network and pissing your reputation off to everyone. Just as I was saying before, a funny deal goes sideways 6 months ago, and I'm hearing from a new buyer about that funny business that happened 6 months ago from 4 levels of connection. Somebody talked to somebody who talked to somebody who talked to somebody who eventually it got back to me. So if that is going that far, 1, 2, 3, and back to me 4, how many of the people in that chain talk to 2 people, who talk to 2 people, who talk to 2 people, who talk to 4 people? So one bad experience in the business can can far beat down anything that you have maybe created. So be very careful to protect your reputation and to be very transparent with your business. If someone brings it up, talk about it. Talk about what actually happened and own it. If you screwed up or it went sideways on you, own it. And always be telling people what you stand for when it comes to your brand and your reputation, because it will come back to get you. If you're not careful, your reputation will precede you, good or bad. So we're going to jump to the deal room, a little bit of a shorter call. Branding is super important, but it can be a whole hour long. So this is just the top of the iceberg. If you're not doing branding, your business will only get bigger and better if you start doing the branding. So until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next recording, and we're going to jump to the deal room with the rest of the guys.